What's going on, guys? Pokey here. We see a lot of questions pop up in the Discord as well as the YouTube comments section, and I wanted to make this video to kind of clarify a few things, explain a couple points, and emphasize some parts that you should know regarding Project Nova. With that said, let's jump right in with a few questions. So the question that I get the most is, of course, Nova when? When is the game going to be coming out? And we kind of have an answer to that. So the game is going to be in a playable state before the end of the year. And I know that there's not a lot of time left in the year, so we're looking at probably November, December, that kind of time period. But keep in mind that this is probably not a full release of the game. It's most likely an early access, alpha, something like that. So don't expect a full array of features with all of the weapons, all of the drop suits. You may not even have full customization. It might be very much the core first-person experience. Drop in, do some PvP, get a feel for things. They want to give players a chance to get in there and actually try the game, even if it's not going to have a lot of the features you might be expecting. Is the game coming to console? The short answer is no. Project Nova is being released exclusively for PC, and there are currently no plans for a console release. Additionally, mouse and keyboard is the only supported input type, so if you're used to playing with a controller, you're going to either have to use Steam's built-in controller mapping or a third-party application. How many players will there be per battle? Project Nova is a 16 versus 16 game. I know there was some confusion at one point because the tech demo they put up in 2016 FanFest featured 6 versus 6. However, this is entirely because they simply didn't have enough room to fit more computers in the space they were using to do the demo. Since the game is taking place on the surface and interior of EVE Online spaceships and structures, is it going to be primarily close quarters combat? You have to understand that EVE Online ships and stations are big, like really big. So you can fit an actual pretty big size map on top of a ship and have it actually still be to scale. That being said, you're not going to have necessarily the big sprawling plains that you would see like in Modest Peak for Dust 514, but you're going to have lots of variety between long and short range combat. Will there be vehicles in the game? Vehicles are not part of Project Nova. The developers are currently focusing on making a very solid and enjoyable infantry combat experience. There might be a possibility for vehicles to be added in the future, but there are currently no plans at this time. Will my progress from Dust transfer onto Project Nova? Progress that was made in Dust for your characters will not transfer onto Project Nova. There is a system in order for you to reserve your Dust 514 character name, as well as locking your veteran status, but all the ISK, experience, skills, and assets that you acquired in Dust will not be transferring to the game. When I reserve my character name to transfer from Dust 514 to Nova, will it transfer all 3 of my characters? The name reservation is only for a single character per account. So the way it's going to work is that when you go through the system to reserve your character name, it's going to select the character with the most SP. The other characters in the account will not be reserved. If you would like to use a character name that is not the one with the most SP, you can contact support and have them reserve that name instead. Do keep in mind that Project Nova will have an account with a single character. You will not have 3 characters per account like you would see in Dust 514 or EVE Online. Will there be general classless drop suits, or will you specialize immediately? So the base suits in Project Nova are the 6 classes. They are specialized towards that class, but they are still generalized within that particular class. If you would like to specialize further in that class, you can equip Firmware. If you want to know how Firmware works, we have a video that I'll link in the description below. Are Firmware bonuses based solely off of the base bonuses of the suit, or can you have bonuses that are different from the base bonuses of the suit? So in my example about Firmware, I took the same base bonuses a suit had and just tweaked them to specialize a particular way within that class. That was just an example. You can still have firmware that could potentially change in a more drastic way the kinds of bonuses that suit has. It's going to still stay generally within the role of that particular class, but it's not necessarily going to be the exact same bonuses that the base suit has, just changed with the values. Is firmware optional? Yes, firmware is optional. If you would like to use a class and just use the generalized kind of multi-purpose version of it, you can choose to not equip firmware. What is the difference between firmware and a module that you equip to your drop suit? So firmware is equipped to your drop suit similar to the way a module is equipped. Firmware has its own unique slot that can only fit firmware, whereas modules go into module slots. The other big difference is that modules will typically focus on things like modifying your HP values, your speed, damage output, that sort of thing. Firmware, however, while it could change those things, is more focused on modifying the role bonuses that particular suit has. Is progression limited to a particular role? For example, can only the logistics revive people? Player choice is a huge part and one of the major pillars of the game design. As such, the developers have really tried to avoid limiting classes from doing something. So for the most part, any class is going to be able to do something that another class can. Keep in mind, however, that while your Sentinel may be able to revive people, the logistics is probably going to have a bonus to reviving people and therefore be better at it. Do keep in mind that there will be some things that are unique per class. So for example, the movement abilities that have been mentioned are going to be unique per class. So you're going to have a few things that you have to be a certain class to do, but in general, in terms of kind of the roles you can fulfill, you're going to have lots of flexibility. Will the game have corporation support? Community is obviously important to developers. It's actually one of the core pillars of the game, and they recognize that corporations are instrumental in holding the community together, and is largely why a lot of people play New Eden games. That being said, however, like we said earlier, the game is releasing this year, but probably in a very early access stage, so I wouldn't necessarily expect corporations to be in there day one, but we'll definitely be seeing them later down the line. Will there be an endgame activity like Planetary Conquest? Kind of like corporations, they understand that an endgame activity like Planetary Conquest is important. Most likely it's not going to be Planetary Conquest due to the setting of the game, but it is an important thing, it's on their radar. You're not going to see it early on, but down the line, it most definitely will be in the game. Will Project Nova be available on Steam? Yes it will. Will the game be free to play? While CCP has been fairly non-committal in stating if the game is going to be free or not, most likely from the sources and information we're looking at, the game will be free to play. Will there be microtransactions? Because the game will most likely be free to play, yes, there will most likely be microtransactions. I do want to point out, however, that towards the end of Dust, there was a lot of different techniques for microtransactions that the team was playing around with. Rattati has come out and said that, hey, we were just testing stuff, we've learned a lot from it, so don't expect there to be, carbon copies of the things they were trying. Again, those were just experiments, so we'll hopefully be seeing some stuff that's consumer friendly in the game moving forward. Will there be any founder packs like the original Mercenary pack? So CCP hasn't released any specific information regarding founder reward. They have, however, pointed out that if you reserve your name and lock in your veteran status, that you will get a special Phoenix drop suit that is unique to veterans. Rattati has also come out and kind of said, hey, that's not the only thing probably you're getting, so there probably will be more at the very least for veterans, but I imagine they will most likely, if they're going into kind of a beta early access phase, have some sort of pack that you can purchase as well. And finally, what are the minimum system specs to play the game on PC? Minimum specifications is kind of a tough thing to nail down, especially if you're early in development. The team is aiming for mid-range computers, but because they have to optimize and see kind of where everything lands and how, what system will best perform with the game, they haven't nailed that down yet. So it's difficult to really kind of figure out exactly where you need to be. However, if you go to the Dust Veterans Discord, there is a channel in there called PC Building Help, and people in there are extremely helpful. They can help you kind of sort out approximately what a mid-range PC looks like. So I wouldn't build it yet until you know for sure, but you can at least kind of get the price range in mind and kind of start saving up for it. And that's all the questions I have for today. So be sure to stay tuned to Biomassed.com, this channel, all our Twitter accounts. Livy and I are going to be in Vegas, which we have now confirmed Project Nova will be featured in a pretty big way. So stay tuned, we'll keep you updated. See you next time.